Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. I have some really great news for you. Our district has received some additional funding, some information about some additional CARES Act funding. It's called the Coronavirus Relief Fund, or CRF for short. So I am providing this very quick webinar to give you some information on how to apply for those funds. It is not an application like our ESSER funds in the past from CARES Act. We were not given an allocation. Instead, schools have an opportunity to let us know, let the State Department know what your needs are, and they will let us know if that is going to be funded and if it's allowable. So I'm going to take some time during this webinar to explain to you exactly what the process looks like. And if you have any questions after that, please feel free to contact me. So just some background information. The Corona Relief Fund reallocation spending plan is a result of Act 170. And if you are looking at this webinar, you can click to learn more about Act 170, but it was signed into law by Governor McMaster on September 25th. So just a very short time ago, a few days ago. To reimburse funds to LEAs or schools, it's been authorized for the following. So these are the areas in which you can ask for funding: tutoring, supplemental services, and support services to include services for unengaged students, interventionists, and after-school learning extensions that prioritize face-to-face instruction, focused on students with identified reading or math difficulties, and students with IEPs to address deficits resulting from COVID-19. So those are the areas in which you can ask for funding. So again, this PowerPoint is to provide you with information related to the application for allowable reimbursable expenses as authorized specifically by Section 4 of the Spending Directive number 4 of Act 170. All other spending directives provided for in Act 170, specifically purchases of technology and personal protective equipment, that PPE, as well as the ability to hire or contract with school nurses, will be handled through separate means and should not be included within this application. So in other words, you may not include PPE, technology, or contracting with school nurses. Hiring or contacting with school nurses. Those were some of the things that were addressed with the ESSER funds, and so those are separate and should not be included in this plan. So just to give you an idea of the timeline, we received a memo from Molly Spearman yesterday, which was September 30th. Applications are due to the State Department on October 9th. So as you can see, we have a very, very short turnaround to complete these applications and submit them to the State Department for approval. So your school applications are due in Epicenter no later than this coming Tuesday, October 6th. If you need another day to submit, just let me know, but I'm hoping that we can get all of them in by Tuesday, because that will give me an opportunity to review and do the things that I need to do to submit one application to the State Department. So there's a lot of copy paste from your applications into one district application. So if you can get those in by Tuesday, that would be great. You'll upload these in Epicenter. It will be listed under other federal and state grants, Corona Relief Fund, or CRF application. So that's where you'll find it in Epicenter to upload it. The memo did state that a staff member from the South Carolina Department of Ed will contact the district within 72 hours to communicate if the request qualifies as an approved allowable reimbursable expense. So even though we have a quick turnaround, it sounds like the State Department is going to have a quick turnaround to get back to us and let us know if your request has been approved. So again, here are the areas in which you can create activities. These are the allowable expenses under the CRF application. So again, those are the supplemental services, and those are defined as services that are provided on a limited basis to complement the core school resources. So some examples of this may include counselors, social emotional learning opportunities or programs, remedial services, or additional contracted services needed for students with IEPs. Tutoring, additional certified staff. So the additional certified staff are those identified by the district or the school, in your case, the school, analysis as needed to meet district or school instructional needs, who would be employed through the end of December 2020. So I will show you in just a few minutes the timeline for pre-award expenses and post-award expenses, but all of these expenses must be expended by December 31st of 2020, this year. So it's these are some short-term activities. Also allowable are support services that prioritize face-to-face instruction focused on students with identified reading or math difficulties and students with IEPs to address deficits from COVID-19. Included but not limited to interventionists. Those could be academic or behavioral interventionists who serve students within the MTSS framework across tiers 1, 2, and 3, and before or after school learning extensions. Again, the CRF funds expire on December 31st of this year. Therefore, all funding must be utilized by this date. It is also likely that the deadline for submission of expenditures will be the beginning of December. So you'll want to make sure that all of your activities fall between this July 1st and July 1st and December 31st deadline. Employment contracts may not be prepaid for the following year using these funds. So all employment being paid for through the CRF funds would need to end by December 31st of 2020 if the district or school does not plan to continue such contracts using their own funds. So again, these funds can only go through December 31st, 2020. All requests made by districts should follow the mindset of, but for COVID-19, the district, or in your case, the school, would not have needed this service or contract. So keep that in mind as you are thinking about those additional expenses that you have incurred from July 1st and may incur through the end of the year, December 31st, as a result of COVID-19. So there are two types of expenses, much like your ESSER funds. We had those pre-award expenses and those post-award expenses, but the dates are a little different. So for pre-award expenses, you may go back to July 1st and through October 10th of 2020, because we have to submit the application on October 9th. So all of those expenses would be considered pre-award expenses. Any post-award expenses would be those expenses that are going to occur between October 11th and December 31st of this year. So there's a place on the application I will show you in just a few minutes where you can list whether it's a pre-award expense or a post-award expense. This is the first part, section 1 of the application. The application is an Excel file. I hope this makes it a little easier. I know most of you are used to Excel applications because of GEMS. This application is not in GEMS, but it makes it a little easier for sorting. I learned that the hard way through the ESSER application. So I tried to make it a little easier for our schools. So the first section is simply your school information. It has the information about what the CRF funds are related to, and then you would just put in your information. Please make sure that you include the name of the person completing the application, number 6 there, row 6, you can see that, and the best contact phone number. Again, this is a very quick turnaround application, so in case I need to contact someone, this is where you would put the best phone number and email address for the person who can answer questions about the application. Section 2 involves the programmatic planning, and there are 2 questions under section 2. And the first question basically is, which of the following are included in the district proposal to address deficits resulting from COVID-19? In your case, it would be school instead of district, and you would check all of those that apply. So if you'll notice, there's a box here And on the application that you have, these are merged together, and there's a drop-down menu for a yes or a no. So if you had activities in your plan that were services to complement the core school resources, such as counselors, SEL learning opportunities, etc., you would click yes. If you do not, you would just click no, and you would do that for each of these different allowable services. If you have something else there that follows within the guidelines, then you could also click yes here under other, and you would insert what other support services you included there. Okay, so section 2, that is the first question. Under section 2, there is a second question, which has basically 2 different sections. The first section is A through G, and this is the section that you're pretty familiar with because this is the section where you will type in your activities. I've given you a couple of examples. Under column B, you will see that the pre-award, you're going to list whether it's a pre-award or a post-award. So again, those pre-awards are any expenses from July 1st through October 9th. And the post-award expenses are those from October 10th through December 1st. So you will have a drop-down menu in your application here where you can click on either post-award or pre-award. Column C, again, this has to do with those support services that you clicked above or checked above. There is a drop-down menu here for all of those areas, so you can just simply click to show which of those allowable areas this particular activity falls in. The next column, D, is the function and object code. Please make sure you're using those high-level codes. I know there's been a lot of confusion because when you ask for reimbursement, you have to type in the detailed budget code. But for applications, remember, we're only allowed to use those high-level codes. So please make sure you're using those high-level codes there. And if you have questions about a particular activity and what function code or object code that may be, please contact Nick, Michael, or La Precious Sapp, and they'll be able to help you with that. Column E, you simply type in the total for the activity. Column F is the time frame. So these 2 examples, you'll notice these are October through December of 2020. So if you'll just type in the time frame there of when the money is going to be spent, when those funds for that particular activity will be spent. The next section, G, column G, is the detailed description. This is where you will type in the details of the activity, just like you've done with all of your other federal programs. Make sure you include enough details that they don't have questions. The example here, we have an hourly behavioral specialist to serve students in grades 1 through 5 within the MTSS framework across tiers 1, 2, and 3. Notice I went into more detail to let them know how many hours, how much per hour, how many hours per day, how many days per week, how many weeks, so that we could get a total. And I did 2 different examples that are very similar. One focuses on an hourly behavioral specialist, one focuses on an hourly academic specialist. And that's because this next section here, this is a section on your application, you'll see it's titled Define and Measure. So there is a section of the application where we have to notate how each school will define and measure each activity. And these are the 4 areas that section's divided into: quality indicators, tools, target measure, and rationale. So the examples here, notice that the quality indicators for the hourly behavioral specialist are fewer discipline referrals. The tool that's going to be used is discipline reports in PowerSchool. And the target measure, remember, if it's a measure, it needs to be something you can actually measure. You're going to measure that by looking at the discipline reports in PowerSchool. But the target is to have a decrease in discipline referrals, by 40% by the end of the school year. So it's okay if you're measuring it, because the goal is that even though these are short-term goals, the State Department hopes that these are going to be ongoing, have ongoing results. What is the rationale behind this particular activity. More focused one-on-one support to students will decrease discipline issues, which will result in increased academic achievement. And for the academic specialist, you have obviously different quality indicators. So this is just an example, but you may have for this particular school an increase, they would have increased reading scores on the MTSS screeners. These are the two tools that they will be using as screeners. The target measure is an increase in reading scores by 30% by the end of the year. And of course, the rationale is that if you have more focused one-on-one academic support in reading, that will result in increased student achievement. Okay, just a few notes. We did reach out to the State Department contact for this grant to ask for additional information to make sure we gave you good examples, and also to help you understand what this section, this define and measure section, boils down to. So I wanted to give you show you the response that we received from the State Department. So basically they said that the purpose of this section is to show that even though the school is putting a short-term intervention in place with this particular funding, the schools should consider how they will follow up and what those longer-term outcomes might be for those particular activities. So they reminded us that while the funds must be expended by December 31st, the effects may and should be longer term. And here is an example they provided. By December, the data you may have might be around attendance, minutes of instruction, parent-student survey results, etc. But by the end of the year, you may now have other data from things like student growth, achievement, engagement survey results, etc. All right, so if you have any questions about this particular application, please contact me at 803-960-8609, or you can also email me at tsuite@scharter.org. All right, so happy spending. Again, if you have questions, please let me know. I know this is a quick turnaround, but I am more than happy to help. All right, have a great day. Thank you, guys.